well, this is a circle, and you can start anywhere in a circle, but we'll start at the top. It's how you process information. Well, obviously, the bottom line is that you have a certain amount of sensory input. Okay. That sensory input is interpreted with regards to its significance as a consequence of its interaction with what you already know, which is basically to say that your present, which constitutes the sensory information theoretically that's impinging on you at this moment, is not a veridical picture of the external world, but your interpretation of reality as it's unfolding. You know, I'm not trying to make a point that there's no such thing as an external reality or that you're living in a delusion or any of those things, just that you're always interpreting what's going on in relationship to its significance to you. And you have models. It's models that are doing that. You have theories about what someone's like, what you're like, and what the situation consists of, and what you should be doing next. And all of the input that you have that constitutes your online experience is a function of your interpretation. It's based on actual information, but it's still a function of interpretations. Okay, so use your declarative memory. That's one form of memory storage to construct your version of the present. That's the significance of things as they're unfolding at the present time. You can only really make judgments about the significance of things by contrasting them with what you would like to happen. So that's your image of the desired future. Okay. If you're doing something that's very simple, well, let me give you an example. There are experiments where people's task is to pick up an object, and they can see the object in front of them. Okay, so you're given the task. That's the basic story. The story is what you're required to do is to transform yourself from the person you are now into the person who has possession of that watch. It's just a standard laboratory experiment. But the watch is actually not there. It's an image that's generated by mirrors. And when you move towards the watch, you find that it's not where it appears to be. Well, the fact of the object not being where it appears to be is an anomaly with regards to your current plan. And you'll react to that emotionally. The first thing that will happen is that, well, obviously you're going to be surprised, right? You think, this is pretty easy. I'm going to pick that up, and you find out that the thing that you see is not actually there. That's an anomaly. You say, well, you contrasted your desired future, which was your aim when you moved your arm, with the actual outcome of your actions. So that's a mismatch. It's a part of your brain called the hippocampus that seems to be responsible for comparing what's actually going on, insofar as you can interpret that, with what you want to happen. And if a mismatch occurs, that sets up a whole sequence of related events. And those events manifest themselves in emotion and in thought and in behavior. Most evidently in emotion. If you're going to do something, you've done it before, and it doesn't work out the way you expected it to, the events that constitute the anomaly, the unexpected occurrence, they're surprising. And the question then is, what does surprising mean? Well, it basically means that something threatening has occurred and something unknown has taken place. So what does the unknown mean? Well, the thing about the unknown is that you don't know what it means. That's a pretty straightforward statement. But you see, that immediately introduces a strange sort of paradox, because you lack infinite information. Obviously, people don't know what they're doing all the time, which means that you come into contact with things that you don't understand a lot. And that means, in a sense, that you have to know what to do when you don't know what to do. Because you don't know what to do a lot. And that doesn't just bring you to a halt. Well, it is the case that your nervous system is hardwired to move to a sort of default position when the explicit plans that you have, that you're carrying out, fail. So as long as you could say, in a sense, as long as you know what you're doing, which means that you have a representation of where you are and where you'd like to be. You're carrying out your plans to make the move, and things are going according to plan. Well, as long as you're doing that, then the higher centers of your brain, the cortex, basically, it's under control. You know what you're doing. You feel comfortable and secure. As soon as something unexpected happens, the control shifts, and this is something that's basically beyond your capacity to control, though you can interfere with the process. Control shifts from the cortical centers to the more fundamental areas of the brain, to the limbic system. When something unexpected happens, two things occur. You stop, you'll feel a little bit of anxiety. Depends on how unexpected the occurrence is. If it's really unexpected, you'll be very, very frightened. If it's just minor, something minor league unexpected, you'll just stop. Your sensory processing will heighten, you'll gather more information, and you'll explore. And as you explore, you generate information, and the information is supposed to bring you back on course, basically. So you'll say, well, what you'll do if you're trying to reach for the watch and you find out that it isn't where you think it is, well, you'll start making different sorts of approach sequences until you end up producing the outcome that you intended. And when something unexpected occurs, two sets of circuitry are activated. One looks like it's dominated by the right hemisphere, the other looks like it's dominated by the left hemisphere. Unexpected things make you anxious and curious, and you can localize those emotions in the body, so to speak. Anxiety is the emotion that accompanies the cessation of your body's plan-directed activities. Okay, that's, you could say that anxiety is what you feel when you slip into the mode of pause for further analysis. What you expected to do didn't happen, so you have to stop. Curiosity is what you feel when it's necessary for you to explore further, to gather new information, to update your plans. And exploration is basically governed by the interplay of the circuitry, brain circuitry, that mediates anxiety and curiosity. Curiosity, by the way, that's associated with positive emotions. And anxiety, as you all well know, is associated with, that's a negative emotion. People would rather not experience it. Curiosity, or surprise, is basically a juxtaposition of those two sets of emotions, which work antagonistically. The unknown produces conflict all by itself. That's the, in a sense, and it's kind of early to introduce this, but that's the central theme, in a way, of the whole course, is that you have a hardwired response to the emergence of the unexpected. You have to, because you have to know what to do when something unexpected occurs. It's instinctive. Your instinctive response to the unknown is anxiety plus curiosity, which is to say, cessation of ongoing motor activity plus a drive to move forward and explore. And your exploratory activity is actually the sum total of the activation of the two sets of circuitry that mediate that response. And when you explore, if you explore, if something unexpected happens, you don't have to explore. You can note it and get the hell out of there. It's safe, but you don't gather any new information. It's a good short-term strategy, it's not a good long-term strategy. But anyways, the point is that surprise activates curiosity. That impels you forward, you generate new information, you update your plan, and soon you can get to where you want it to go. And the point is that mismatch between what you expect to happen and what actually happens, that disinhibits anxiety. Yeah. If mismatch occurs, there's a little suborgan in your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala looks like it's responsible for the addition of emotion to sensory experience. Now, behavioral psychologists have presumed in the past, most psychologists have presumed, particularly behaviorists, that you learn to be afraid. Newer models of the neuropsychology of emotion reverse that presupposition and say, no, you know how to be afraid. Anything that you don't expect makes you afraid. That's your default position. What you have to learn is how to be secure. Now, by the time you're an adult, you've learned how to be secure so well, under most circumstances, under secure circumstances, you've learned how to be secure so well that you don't realize that your a priori or default position is fear. You're so well enculturated, assuming you're successful, that the true nature of your emotional response is in a sense hidden from you, which is precisely as it's supposed to be, because the whole purpose of socialization, the whole purpose of learning is in fact to shut off the circuitry that says something of indeterminate significance is occurring now. People do not like it when that circuitry is activated. Not it. That's a bit in error, because people like to explore. You like novelty in small doses. Small controllable doses, it's like food. It's when something truly unexpected occurs that uproots or upsets your plans that anxiety really becomes disinhibited. People like that less than anything else. Anyways, The amygdala labels things that are unexpected as simultaneously threatening and promising. That basically puts you into an approach avoidance conflict. So, what does that mean? It means that anything unpredictable is not neutral. Anything unpredictable is frightening. Now, that in and of itself immediately sheds a certain amount of light on why it is that we're somewhat loath to accept people whose behaviors we can't predict as one of us. People who are from a culture that's different from ours, for example, who have a story about how things should go that runs differently from ours, their behavior cannot be predicted with certainty. And you are instinctively wired, so to speak, to label unpredictable behavior as threatening. Now you can think about this in really concrete terms. And you can experience this sort of thing regularly, for example, on a stroll through Harvard Yard. Like, if you look around you, you're all decked out in symbols, so to speak, that indicate your particular status and goal-directed nature in a community such as this. You're all relatively well-dressed. You're all relatively, no insults intended. You're all well-groomed. You're attentive. And your behavior is very much indistinguishable from one another. You're all participating in the same sort of ritual. And there's no reason for you to view your neighbors sitting beside you with any degree of suspicion, because you're convinced that you can predict them. But if you take a walk through somewhere like Harvard Square, where there are people who've, in a sense, fallen out of the culture, so there are people there who are mentally ill, some of them are schizophrenic, many of them are alcoholic, they're homeless for one reason or another, they're hard on your guilt, if nothing else, but they're also unpredictable. And you find that people do standard things in the face of unpredictable others. They tend to avoid them, walk around them, or at least to feel very uncomfortable in their presence. And that's because you do not know what to do in the face of someone whose story you cannot easily determine. You don't know what they're like. You don't know if they're going to hurt you. You don't know if they're dangerous in some regard. You don't know what your obligations are with regards to them. They're already labeled as part of the unknown, so to speak, and you'll give them a relatively wide berth. The only message that's really necessary from this particular slide today is the idea that you're always contrasting what you want to happen with what you think is happening. They're both models. And wherever there's a deviation, wherever what you want to happen isn't going on, then you feel anxiety, curiosity as well. You're impelled to explore. But anxiety is the thing that comes up first. And the larger the magnitude of the unexpected occurrence, the greater the amount of anxiety. One of the things we're going to try to determine in the course is how you can understand how large a disruption a given unexpected event is. Because, let's go back to this other diagram for a second. Here's a way of looking at it. So let's say you're going somewhere, and you have 3 plans to get there. And this plan doesn't work, so that means it produces an outcome that isn't what you envisioned. And this plan doesn't work. It produces an anomalous outcome as well, but this plan does work. Well, that's no problem. I mean, those are pretty minor league disruptions. All you do is you keep the same vision of yourself and the same vision of the future. You just switch between plans. But you're really in trouble if none of your plans work, or if someone messes around with your representation of this or this. So you can say, for example, you want to get into medical school, and you need 30 courses to get into medical school. And you should have A's on all of them. And you get a B+ on one course. Okay. Well, you still have all these other courses. That's not such a big deal. It's a minor league disruption. It causes you a certain amount of anxiety and produces a certain amount of exploratory behavior. Perhaps you might go to the professor and say, why is it that I got this B+ when I was expecting an A? And don't you know what that's going to do to my vision of the ideal future? And so on and so forth. That's one sort of disruption. You're a bit anxious, but hey, you have 29 other courses, it's not such a big deal. Now, instead, you write the MCAT, and you score in the 15th percentile. Well, now you're in trouble. Because you have a vision of yourself. You think this is your version of the unbearable present. You're not a doctor. That's a pain in the neck. But you're a potential doctor. You have the intellectual resources at your disposal, and the educational background, and the familial push, perhaps, to make you into a doctor. And so that's what you've conceived yourself as. That's your story about yourself, is you're this person with this set number of potentials. And you also have a vision of where it is that you're going. Well, the MCAT score comes back and you're in the 15th percentile. Well, your ideal future, it's gone. That's a big problem. Because that means that all of the events that have surrounded you, that surround you now, and as far back as you can remember, that were given determinate significance by this particular plan, have all been cast into chaos. Because everything that you've done up to that point has been predicated on the notion that this is where you were going, and that means that the significance that you attributed to everything was attributed to everything in relationship to that goal. You blow out the goal, and all those significances are back up in the air. You have to modify your version of yourself. It's like, what the hell are you going to do now? You're not going to be a doctor. You put a lot of work into this. Plus, it's your whole self-conception. Well, this is gone. This is gone. I mean, this is irrelevant, right? I mean, the other 29 courses, why the hell are you even here now? So, that's one example of the levels at which anomalies can occur. Minor league anomalies, no problem. You just scoot around them and you go to the same place. Major league anomalies, it's a new ideal future.